We'll start from this side of the aisle.
Lee Peterson, Ward 2 Alderman.
Andy Gilly, Parks Director.
Jesse Eckenroth, Chief of Operations. Marshall Boyd, Public Works Director.
Eddie Robertson, Alderman, Ward 6.
And Mark Skidmore, Alderman. We'll start from this side of the aisle. And
Lee Peterson, Ward 2 Alderman.
okay, cool. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and on the agenda this afternoon is just dealing strictly with the budget. And I'll tell you what I would like to do. I would like to go ahead, if there's no objection to the, obviously to the committee, we'll go ahead and start, but I would like to start with Parks and Rec first. If that's okay. Andy, if you need any time to prepare, are you ready to roll? Okay. If there's no objection from the committee, since everyone is here, we'll go, hearing no objection from it, we'll go ahead with Andy and go ahead and start. With,
Well, page 13 and 14, I believe, in the updated packet is where the parks operating budget is. I'll give big thanks to the mayor and to Jesse for attending meetings, listening to feedback, and making adjustments to this prior to the first reading, because this is a little different than what we had at the workshop.
Okay.
And I believe it's something we can definitely operate off of and do the things that we need to take care of on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so
I don't, in years past, we've had to come in here and ask for this, that, and whatever in the operating section, and I'm not here to do that.
okay, well, we thank you. Is there anything at all that you want to talk about?
I would call your attention to the projects page. I'm not exactly sure what page number that is. Special projects. Just so everybody knows what's going on, I guess.
Page 35.
35. Page 37 really is the page to look at. We went in as a staff and listed those that say parks beside them as requested items. A couple of them are in there and some of them are taken out, which is fine. And then rugby facilities, construction and renovations was added after the workshop.
Okay,
I do need clarification on what we are to do with that project, what that is going to be used for. If we're to take on the whole construction of restrooms with that, if we need to use that to hopefully match a grant later. I need some clarification on that. And I wanted to see too, if the anticipated revenue from Bill Charles is in the revenue section of the budget. If so, is that 50,000 supposed to help with that expense of 150?
I think so. I saw it in there. It's on 50,000 for Charles.
okay.
And Jesse, do you know if even more than 50 is included in that?
I do not know.
It will be more than 50, but I think the over 50 is already designated.
Right, the 50 we'll be able to get fairly soon. The other portion of that for the improvements on Long Hollow will happen a little bit later. So when they plat that property, when they make that connection to Long Hollow is when we can remain.
It's my understanding that the 150 is for the bathrooms. Now, how we're gonna construct those, I don't know. I read your last week.
Yes.
I read your description, Andy, about that. Brian would be able to get a lot of in-kind contributions.
Right.
And so I guess, Jesse, what I was wondering, I know that they'll still be under all codes, under planning commission. They'll have to get all that approval. And I'm sure Marshall will work with them. But what I was thinking is, could we give the rugby league a grant to build the bathrooms? Because Brian says he can get quite a bit of in-kind contributions and maybe make the 150,000 with what they've already raised work.
He told me that he needed 50. The 50,000 from Bill Charles is what he has told us is what he needed to complete the bathroom project with what he's already raised.
He told me, and I've got an email I can share with you. He told me that in addition to the 50, that they're gonna have to raise about 70,000 more. And he said that's gonna take some time to raise. I don't wanna wait on the bathrooms. I wanna get them, I wanna get the bathrooms built. I think, in my view, that's a priority over lights. So the way I hope that the mayor is interpreting this is that this 150 is gonna go for the restroom, to finish the restrooms.
That was my understanding. Because we own the facility, I don't know that we would necessarily give a grant to another organization to build on our facility, and I'm looking into that. But maybe what we could do is partner with them, and the building, the construction of it could route through the city to make sure we have proper insurances, and we follow the purchasing policy because there's government funds that are involved. But either way, I'll work with the rugby team and we can come up with a plan. Then the grant may be an option, and I'm still researching that with Mr. Manning on how we go about that. But my understanding is it is for bathrooms, and we would probably work in tandem.
That's all I need to know. If we want this to go to the bathrooms, and we'll do it. We do project partner with people all the time, where we do part of it and they send us the bill and no problem. I just want to make sure that everybody understands what we're doing.
Can we get it? I don't know what a construction is. Is this also a concession stand or a press box
Not a
or?
press box. It's concession and restroom.
Okay,
And I think the idea is to leave it a little bit flexible so that as we develop a plan, we're not locked into one specific thing. But I believe the intention was for a bathroom type of facility. And then there may be storage component to that as well.
That would be helpful to leave it flexible, because we've run into that in the past where we've said exactly that tennis, this is going for a men's restroom. Then we have to come back and get an ordinance to also help with the women's restroom.
this is Bill Charles.
He's a developer of Durham. Well, he's a consultant with the developer of Durham Farms.
Okay,
So Durham Farms is part of their agreement with the city, agreed to pay $50,000 for a pedestrian bridge. The city has determined that we don't need a pedestrian bridge. When we build a bridge, we need to build it for traffic.
correct.
So we want to use that $50,000 to help.
Okay, and is this bathroom only available during rugby games, or is this open? Is there a greenway? Is it available at any time?
No, it would only be open when the rugby park is open and in use.
Okay,
That park has a gate on it. If it's not in use, the gate is locked.
so this is just for the facility and not for lights. Because I see there's a line item up here for lights, for rugby and lacrosse, turf field, pickleball, sand, volleyball, but there's no,
The mayor
Amount.
didn't include that in his budget.
That was to be part, and I mean, I was gonna discuss that next, but that line item was to fund the city's match of the LPRF grant that we hope to apply for in August.
how much is the match?
It can be up to 500,000.
And I've got some questions about that, Andy. That on the grant, I seem to recall the lady you referred me to, that we could either, to have the greatest flexibility, we match it with money,
Correct,
or we could match it with land.
correct.
So could we match it with land at Drakes Creek Park and do a bunch of stuff at Drakes Creek Park?
No. It has to use a land match. It has to be land that is not in use for anything currently.
Okay.
And then the project has to occur on that piece of property that you're using the land as the match for. So the only property really that we have that can be used for a land match would be something like the senior center, the middle track at Volunteer Park, or the baby farm.
So we have 3 areas.
Correct. Now, in saying that, you have to have a lot of things in place, such as a master plan for the site, engineering type work. You gotta have a lot of things ready when you turn the grant in. If you're using a land match that involves construction, like if you're gonna build a parking lot or a concession stand.
And how is that master plan coming along?
I'm talking about for a specific site, like
Oh, okay,
the park master plan will be for y'all's review at the end of this month.
okay, good.
And you want to use that grant, if we get it, for lights and for some improvements on the fields, turf fields,
We'd
right?
like to do a turf soccer field and lights for lacrosse and rugby.
So my question, Andy, and I agree, we need to get as much flexibility for that. So my question is, we've talked some about parking lots.
Mhm.
We've also talked about buildings, and I don't know if either of those can be used. The grant can be used for those. What I would like from you is a list of priorities. Because if we have that 500, if we have $1 million with 500,000, how's the best way to spend it? I mean, is parking lots a real concern of you? Is that building? You know,
This list on page 37 is what we took when we we're going through the master plan process and in meeting with the leagues and the staff. That list where it says parks and then projects is our prioritized list. When I did this budget request with all these items, that was what we felt was the biggest priorities. So you start with turf fields, rugby, lacrosse, tennis facility resurface, which is that's a need, but it's not an expensive one as the others. Then the next one, we had still have flood repairs, relocating the maintenance building. And then I had I skipped paving. That was the third one on there. You all had requested me to put in as a special project going forward, paving projects. So that was what I would put in the request.
Yeah, and some of these, Jesse, some of these items that he lists, we possibly could use some of the federal COVID relief funds, right? Possibly,
Possibly, yes.
possibly. So we can use some.
Which ones?
So if we do for stormwater, so if we reconfigure the parking lot to handle stormwater, that would tackle our paving at the same time, because we basically have to tear it up to regrade it.
There's no doubt that could be used for paving and possibly a relocation of the maintenance building, which now sits in the middle of the floodplain.
I personally don't know that we're gonna have that much flexibility, because, I mean, I would like to also do the Mary's Magical Place, the dredging with that federal money. So we only gonna have was it 2.8, the first draw, 2.9 or?
Yeah, about 2.9.
2.9, but, so I've looked at the parking lots. I've driven over at all of them, and to me, we got some roads, Andy, that are in worse shape than the parking lots. I asked Sarah at the last Public Works meeting, is there any way that the fog seal could help extend the life of any of those parking areas at the park? I don't know if y'all had a chance to look at that, but Jesse, I would like for you to explore that, to see if fog seal, like we did out here on this street, is it cheaper, and a way we might get 5 or 6 more years out of maybe some of the better parking lots over there at the parks. So.
In terms of priorities, that list on this project page was our prioritized list. Like I said, I understand that projects get cut and things like I get that, but I did want to make sure that you all knew what needed to be done and what the priorities were.
Do you have an itemized amount for lights? This turf soccer field, pickleball and sand volleyball? We've got several calls and emails about lacrosse lights. And I've been out to the rugby field, so I know that there's a need for lights there as well.
Rugby, one field is going to be approximately 200,000. Lacrosse, approximately, it says between 139 and 153. This was given to us 2 years ago in a kind of a 4-year range, so we're at the tail end of that. About 150 for lacrosse. And then a turf athletic field is going to be between 650, 675.
Is that one field? Is that a soccer field?
One soccer field.
Andy, is the soccer field that's remaining at Volunteer? Does it need more lights on it? Are those,
It would need lights on the other side if we start playing a lot of games out there.
so,
That's the one we'd like to turf also.
so can we take the lights off that are pointing to that other,
I think so. We still have to put poles up, but we could reuse those lights. The way the grant works, just to let you all know, I will have to bring a resolution at the end of June to this committee. Then y'all can recommend it or not recommend it to go to BOMA at the first meeting in July, since the second meeting is canceled. We have to have a resolution that says this is the city's saying that we support the Parks Department applying for this grant, and if awarded, we will agree to fund up to a certain amount of money. And the applications go in August. That's why we had to have the Parks Master Plan done by the end of June.
so I guess it depends on the city finances. You know, can we match it or not? And if we can, I mean, we don't have to match it up to the limit, we can.
And you have 2 years to complete the project.
Okay,
So it could be something that we look at as,
So be it.
I know you can't really vote to fund next year's budget in August of the year before, but under the understanding that we're not gonna be on the hook until possibly next year.
Where are you gonna relocate the maintenance building?
Behind field 13 at Drex Creek Park, as you know where the football field is. Go past the football field, past the high school baseball field, up the hill. There's a parking lot back there, and we also own property behind that parking lot that we're about to get surveyed to see exactly how close we can go to the railroad tracks and the core property.
Okay,
I think that's about the only place we could get it out of the,
So next to the cell tower.
no, the other side of that parking lot.
and that would make sense. What would you do with where the building is now? Parking lot, that would help.
Yeah, it would help immensely, because man, I've been over there before when it's just a madhouse.
Sure would.
That's a pretty hefty expenditure. What's it, over $500,000
That's our estimate.
just for metal?
It's not something that we've really dove in. That's one thing I fully expected to not make the list.
Yeah, to me, that's not, I know it's in the floodplain, but to me, I think there are other priorities as far as I'm concerned over the building. Now, if it was falling in like the one at the golf course, that's a different story. But,
I just wanted to make sure it was in everybody's mind that it's gonna have to eventually occur.
Yeah, we're gonna have to attack it. We're gonna have
Yes.
to look at it, that's for sure.
You brought up the golf farm. How is that going right now? What are we doing? I know I just went off subject, but
We had asked the insurance company to give us a response by the 4th. And John Bradley's been working with them. Our city sent a letter and saying that we disagreed with their assessment, and that we said, absent the weight from snow and ice, the building would still be standing, and that they should be on the hook for it. When the June 4th date came around, they asked for an additional 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, to look at it. There's a placeholder on the BOMA agenda. So if we don't have a response by the time we have BOMA agenda, Alderman Robertson put it on a placeholder on there so we can discuss it. And if we need to go to arbitration, that's what we'll do.
okay.
Will that be an executive committee?
It's under-
yeah,
It is
that's what
executive
it's,
session.
because it's a lawsuit. So I don't know if that's a good sign that they need 2 more days or if, what, you know.
I don't know. And right now, we're just trying to, we're not even giving a cost. We're just saying, determine if this is an eligible, if this is a reimbursable expense, and then we'll get the cost after that, but we don't have.
So, you know, if we lose the arbitration, I don't think we will, but if we lose the arbitration, we might have to pony up a little more money on top of what the golf course has got in their reserves to build a safe maintenance building. But hopefully the insurance will at least give us $100,000, at least 100.
So would you rebuild in the existing location?
Yes. Use the same pad,
Okay,
same concrete.
that would work. Good. Hopefully we get that resolved.
So Andy, I've got a question on some of the events. So I know that there's a charge for some of those events. Where does the money go for some of those special events that we pay for?
If somebody straight up just comes in and rents the facility, it goes back in the general fund under recreation fees, basically. Somebody rents a shelter, they get it. If sometimes we'll get a check from somebody that wants to actually sponsor an event, and I'll bring you guys an ordinance that says this money needs to be allocated towards the Parks Department special event line item. That happens sometimes.
Well, let's look specifically for the 4th of July
Okay,
festival.
all right.
Uh,
4th of July, the city, we pay $20,000 for fireworks. We also rent a generator,
600.
plus, it could be plus or minus, and other miscellaneous expenses.
Stage rental, 1,500.
At times we do that. We're not helping with that this year, most likely. Because normally we have an event the week before and the week after. So that uses the stage, that event is going so big this year, it's going to Hendersonville High School's football stadium. So we're having to do some other things over there for that, and not really, they're gonna have to pay the whole cost of the stage. I'm not opposed to paying for half of it.
And miscellaneous, 1,000, and the traveling veterans, 2,500.
That was supposed to be here last year and canceled because of COVID, and we got it back this year. So then the chamber collects sponsorships, so they Remax or Ball State Bank writes a check for 5,000, 6,000, that goes to the chamber. They also sell vendor booths at, I think, $300 a piece, so that all goes to the chamber of commerce.
So could we, I always try to look for revenue sources, and in fact, the master plan analysis, they said we could maybe do a little better job there on user fees, on fees for for events. So is there any way that we can get the chamber on all of the money that they make? And I know they send it for a good cause, but I'm looking at trying to save Peter to pay Paul, and maybe. So is there any way that we can try to get them to cover some of these expenses, not the fireworks? I'm fully in favor of that, but like the stage and the generator and the miscellaneous, I don't even know what the miscellaneous is. I would assume that's overtime.
It could be, no, not necessarily overtime. It could be just something comes up, like if we need to help with portable restroom, or we need to help with anything. I mean, it's just things pop up with these big events like that. And all of a sudden we'll need to make a call and say, hey, we need a light tower over here tomorrow. We'll just take care of it. So just the way it's always been, I guess. But in terms of asking them to come in with anything other than for fireworks, I don't know that that's necessarily. I mean, they should,
That'd be their
that'd
responsibility.
be their response. We can make it their responsibility.
I talked to Mike Gall. He said, I don't think we'd be opposed to trying to pick up a little of the city expense that we put on that. Mike's just one person, but
Right,
he's one of the main sponsors,
right.
20,000 or something, so
6.
6,000. Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying, Andy, and I'm sure that you do, but I hope that when you're putting these events together, that we look at every possible way that we can try to squeeze some revenue to help pay for our expenses. I think that's just prudent.
Sure. Well, I mean, in this case, you're talking about an event where we give up our entire park and everything in it for nothing to the chamber, and they profit 35,000 plus annually.
So I don't mind them picking up some of these other expenses because of that.
If you want me to ask them that, I'll be glad to ask them and tell them we're in for fireworks and we'd like for you to pay us back for this other stuff. The only other idea I had was just to start a VIP area and sell tickets to that area where you got preferential seating or maybe preferential parking, and let us be the one in charge of that component.
I like it.
That's never
That's a
been,
good idea, really.
that's never been done.
No, it's not.
It works. I don't know how everybody feels about it, but it works. People are willing to pay a premium to park and to sit.
We can let even with an out of the park room.
I mean, by your parking spot automatically. Get that. That's what we talked about doing that this year. We're kind of, it's a unique event in that we do a ton of the logistics and the planning along with the chamber but it is their, it's made clear that it's their event.
Well,
So I think their foundation almost at this point would have to vote to let us have a certain part of it.
I would like,
And it's not even too late for this year to do something like that.
yeah, well, Jesse, I would like for the staff to explore that. I don't know what all of the implications are, but I would like to try to, on some of these events, to try to recoup some of the city expenses as much as we can. Just as a general, I guess on some of these events, we have to almost bid, don't we,
Several of them
against, and so that's what's running up the cost.
can.
So is there
I
any?
mean, I'll
way-
give you another example. The concert we're having on the 22nd. We're gonna spend less than $10,000 on a $50,000 event that 2,000 or 3,000 people are gonna attend. So that to me is a pretty good job. We're not gonna get all our money back, you know, but for us to be able to put on something of that scale, that little is.
Is that the Eat Hendersonville hometown gym?
No,
Or that's 20,000, right? We're putting
that's for next year. This one is June 27th.
And what is that?
It's,
I'm sorry that. I
no,
should
it's
know
a
that.
concert we're hosting with, in conjunction with Live Love Nashville.
Oh, okay.
So I know a lot of these events have hospitality around $1,000 or 500. So I think I know what hospitality is, but is that like setting up a tent, feeding them?
Being the umpires, referees, being the tournament staff.
On the city employee cookout, you've got a tent. I don't know how much expense that is. Have you thought about, instead of renting a tent, using Sanders Ferry Park where we can use the pavilions free of charge?
We thought about that. It's just so far out of the way for a lot of the employees during the day to make that drive down there and then get back after their 30-minute lunch. You're gonna, a lot of them, you got 30 minutes getting down there and back, and not have
Yeah,
time to
for
even eat
real.
lunch.
It'll take 30 minutes to get down there and back.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But that's a good point.
Now, our other option there too is like last year, Rogers Group helped us out by giving us one of their big tents. So it didn't cost us near as much.
I hated to miss the Memorial Day concert, but I was on vacation in Florida. So we had estimated, oh, this is for next year. They're gonna do it again next
They
year.
want to do it from now on.
So did we spend about 5,000 this year on
Spent
that?
about, between us and tourism, we spent about 13 total. And we did not have anybody, we were the two sponsors, the city and Sumner County Tourism. I think going forward, we can look for help on that. It's been a weird year to be the guy going out there asking businesses for money.
I'm sure it has been.
Some of them have had a great year, and some of them that normally we count on have not had a good year at all.
Andy, under the Kinley and Horn on page 133, this was your packet that we originally sent out. I don't know if it's changed. Under league fee increases, it said in Hendersonville, many of the leagues offered are below nearby community league fees. With a large amount of users and participants in these leagues, this small increase would make a large impact in revenue. So are they suggesting that we increase our fees because we're lower than everybody else?
Not the city leagues. They're talking about such as Rec Soccer or Tennessee United or Hendersonville Civitan. Those leagues are lower than the people around us.
We don't have anything to do with that, do we?
And
Although if they
Our-
charge more, we could assess them more, I guess.
if they charge more, we could look at raising our fee that we collect per player from them. And if we did that, let's say the Parks Board voted to raise the resident and non-resident fee up to 15 and 25, then they would pass it through. I have no doubt. They'd have to. So
So are y'all looking at that possibly?
we've looked at it. It was raised about 3 or 4 years ago. It's time. That's actually what they're meeting about in the other room. Is going over league fees and policies and procedures that you all will vote on in a few months. So.
I won't debate that at this point. I'll just keep that, but I appreciate you letting me know that that's a possibility. Sometimes it's hard for me to win, at least in Ward 1, when you see, I don't want to debate the issue about it, but, there's some people that live paycheck to paycheck, and there's sometimes they don't get home in time to have their, to visit with their children, and they're here in the park, so,
There's a lot more waivers than anybody would ever guess.
yeah, I can imagine.
People playing in our leagues.
I can imagine that. I really can. I think that's always a benefit of living in Hendersonville, because we do we're pretty extraordinary about that. Because some of these parks, as you all well know, they're pretty hardcore on that stuff. And Hendersonville's always been really good about that. And then, of course, there's always another side too. People try to take advantage of us, but I would rather err on the side of caution. I'd rather be, as a city, rather be taken advantage of the way that we are than not. Because I've been to these folks' houses, and it's not, what Hendersonville is well known for. It's supposed to be, the premier place to live, and we are. But there are some parts of Hendersonville that are not like that I would like to see the children get involved in something. And sports is always a good thing for the children. So, all right, is there anything else? I didn't mean to get off on that. Any questions?
I want to go back to this list, and I'm back on 37, yes. And I don't want to pick and choose, but do you need a master plan for these lights at rugby and lacrosse?
No, not for the grant purposes. Those are items that you don't have to have engineering and master plan done prior to. As long as we have a site design that's basically simple that we can get from the actual lighting company, which Musco can provide, then we're good as far as the grant goes.
Just wondering, is there any way to get one of the rugby fields lit and the lacrosse field lit? How do we come up with funding for that? For just those two?
We have to reduce our fund balance, at which we're already under what the comptroller is telling us we
Okay.
need to have. So it's a problem. I mean, I guess the city could do it, and then the comptroller's gonna slap our hand, that we don't have a sufficient. Am I wrong there, Jesse?
Yeah, it would reduce fund balance and the comptroller would say, yeah.
Okay.
I will say this, that Brian told me that if we help on the bathrooms, that he would do his best to try to help raise money for the lights. What I would like to see, now the lacrosse raised some money through a fundraiser. This was in a form letter. I got the same letter, 2 or 3 people, the same letter.
How much money do they have?
How much have they raised?
I think they're up to around 20 to 30,000. My hope is that we can come in and have lacrosse, rugby, and hopefully some of the soccer groups help contribute towards what the city's matching portion of the LPRF would be. That's my goal, is to get them all on the same page and say, look, please, here it is, here's your opportunity.
Okay.
Have a chance to do these 3 or 4 things. If you've ever wanted it, you might have a chance right now. If you don't, you might not have a chance for 2 more years.
So that's something I guess we can address if we get the grant.
Yes.
I hope to have it addressed before I come in here to you guys with a resolution and be able to say, we're anticipating this amount to help with the city's portion of our matching funds.
Do we have the match funded?
No,
No. And that's $500,000?
up to.
Up to, you don't have to get it all.
And that's up for the 2, right? For the 2 years, is that the one that we've got? So we need roughly $250 a year or something like that, if not more. That'll be, I guess, a board decision.
I will say, Andy, I appreciate the passion you bring. We don't always agree. but I appreciate the passion that you bring for your department. Sometimes that passion, as the parks budget is presented in the public, sometimes creates pressure on us. I've had several people, as you have, contact me about lacrosse. I had my good friend Brian, that I'm in Rotary with, hit me up twice, and I just had to tell him, I said, we can't fund everything, you know, guys. I wish we had a different way to put together a budget. For example, when I was at the state, the governor never said, give me your wish list. He said, give me a budget, a status quo budget, and a budget of 5% greater. That's it. So, you know, I had to live by those. The problem is when you put out a budget, when Parks puts out a budget, or anybody, with all these goodies, it produces public pressure. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's part of being an alderman. But, you know, we just can't, to be fiscally responsible, we just can't meet all the needs of all the departments. Have to pick and choose.
Can you tell rugby and lacrosse how to raise 100,000?
Sure. Let me pull that out of my back. pocket.
Well, didn't you just raise 100,000?
I did. Full Count Ministries raised that.
Okay.
And you're talking about a very powerful group of people who are well connected across hundreds of families in the community. But when you talk about passion that I have, they're just as passionate about baseball ministry.
But lacrosse, I'm sorry, but rugby has raised a lot of money.
Rugby has raised a lot of money.
We've not spent anything other than what, the parking lot? I
They
mean,
have.
they've been on that
They've done a fantastic job.
through corporate. I mean, they.
And not, you know, not everybody has the connections that they have. Let's be honest about it. They have some connections in the community,
big
with businesses and political, that are not what other groups have. But I mean, I'm just being honest. But I don't blame them. I'd use every connection I had to get something done. And you know, 30,000 for one group is 300 for another sometimes.
That's true.
So, Mr. Chairman, my idea on the parks budget is I would like for budget discussions, I would like for Public Works to look at the potential application of fog seal. Is that what it's called, Marshall?
Yes, sir.
Now, we wouldn't want to do it on these fields that Jesse talked about that might require
Right.
stormwater.
Just the ones that we feel like.
but ones that could actually benefit and try to get 4 or 5 more years of life out of those. So I would like to see that, Jesse, as part of the budget discussions. If not tomorrow night, then the second reading, because I'm interested in trying to extend the life of some of those parking lots, you know, in an economical way. So now, since the mayor made this suggestion, that's really, Mark, the only one that I have.
Yeah, I think it needs to be discussed. Let me just give me just a second. See on the parking lot.
What did you call that,
Except for the ones
that park grant,
LPRF.
LPRF?
Qualified.
TDEC.
Right.
There's 2 of them. There's a LPRF, and then there's what they call a RTP, which is for trails and pathways. And Friends of Indian Lake are going to apply for that one as a 501c3 and put up the 20% match.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
Perfect.
We're over that hillside to get those trails going.
You know, financially, we've got 2 really game changers with the city. The first game changer, if we can come to an agreement with the county.
Yes,
To build Firehouse 7.
right.
That would save us about $3.5 million. And the debt to that, if they pay it over time or if they pay it lump sum. That reduces our indebtedness, and it gives us more headroom on discretionary spending.
Because we need to pave Lower Station Camp Road.
That's the mayor and Jesse's. I don't know about that.
With a bargaining chip, yeah.
But the other game changer
Let's step in that water.
is over
A big piece.
Okay.
5 Street.
Those are 2 big ones.
How can we creatively use that to try to save the general fund?
Exactly.
I know that Jesse's working on that.
All right. Did you have anything besides the fog seal? Is there anything that you, for Parks and Rec?
No. Other than waiting for the grant to hopefully get the grant and do some of these other key areas that, I've received lots of calls and emails about. And, you want to do as much as you can, but we're limited.
As to what we can and cannot do.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to say to people sometimes. Because they're as adamant about it as we are about the whole city. I've had some not contract
Or we're fortunate,
discussions, I guess.
we're fortunate as a city to have as many activities and fields and amenities. And so we're knock on wood.
And this board voted to spend $2.8 million on inline parking. So I don't want parks to feel neglected. Y'all got a big boost this year. We went to bat for you and building a facility that's going to be, I think they said none like it in Tennessee.
Southeast.
So I hope that you can convey to the Parks Board, guys, we didn't get everything we wanted, but look at all we did get this year.
And I think Jesse would speak, the message I sent to the Parks Board when I saw this revised copy was that we would make it work.
Well, I know when I looked at the revised copy, or I actually heard about it, I was very happy. Because I was concerned. In fact, to be honest with you guys, I had spoke to Andy about it. Just, I was like, we're going to meet about this because I didn't see eye to eye with the budget the way it was with the parks. But with this and what has been spoken tonight, I feel pretty good about where we were and now where we are. And let's just hope that we get through Tuesday night. That's the thing, because that's where the show starts and ends. So, all right, is there anything else on the parks? I would just have to say that I really like this. I think the fog seal is a very good idea. That shows a lot of potential really in the public works area. So I feel strongly about that, and I think that's going to be a successful thing. And it may be, this fog seal, if it works out, I think it could be what we've been calling a game changer, but just a general game changer in public works in the future.
Do they restripe after they fog seal, Marshall?
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, they do everything. I mean, it's just like brand new.
Isn't the road out here fog sealed?
Yeah,
And it's lasted 4 or 5 years.
exactly. Yeah, so
I would be curious to know if in the back soccer parking lot,
And a dirt bag.
if fog sealing was an option, if that would give us the ability to then restripe it, because part of the problem with traffic is that the parking spots are striped in a not Walmart fashion. So when you come in a lane, at Walmart, you go down, you go this way, and you go down and go that way. Well, here you come in here, but then the other lane's coming up, turn in the opposite direction.
It's one way.
It's not a one way. People may drive it one way, but you don't park one way, and it causes all kinds of backup.
So the striping, we need to kind of look at.
And then Sarah knows about that. That's one of the first things she looked at. When trying to deal with traffic.
Well, we'll write it down anyway, so none of us will forget about it. Our striping in Hendersonville has always been room for help.
I think that would be the only one that would need to be redone. I mean, we restripe them all every year ourselves, but that one needs to be reconfigured, but she did not want to do that until we either paved or sealed it.
I did have one other thing, Andy, I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Inmate services. I thought last year we voted to amend the budget and allow you to hire 2 additional employees that we wouldn't need inmate services.
That's not what I said. I said, we've got to have help this year. And we had to put 2 in the budget requests for last year that were cut out. So we didn't hire them, 2 full-time. So we were going to have 2 full-time plus the inmates. But we didn't end up not having the inmates all year. So we took that money and allowed us to go ahead and hire the 2 that we were going to get the next year, with the understanding that we would bring the inmates back this year.
What do the inmates do?
They do everything from weed eat to stripe soccer fields to stripe parking lots, trim bushes.
Do they have to be supervised?
We have 2 inmate crew supervisors that go pick them up, feed them.
Is that sheriff's department?
They are, no, well, 2 of our maintenance employees are certified to be inmate crew supervisors.
What about people?
And we have to clothe them and feed them. So when you see the line item for inmate crew, that's what that is. Food and clothing for the year.
So Andy, I talked to City Judge Lincoln,
Mhm.
and I said, any way we could use people that are arrested for DUI in the city to help on that? He said, sure, I can give you all you want, but you got to supervise them.
Mhm.
That's the problem.
Right.
So I just was wondering, is that a potential resource that we're not using? We'd still have to feed them, I guess, wouldn't we?
You'd have to supervise them. You'd have to feed them, and
You just feed them lunch, right?
the inmate crew feed them lunch, yes.
Well, I just. thought
And the
about-
DUI people normally would come to us in the people of having to do community service. If they come to us while they're in jail, they would be through the inmate crew supervisor to begin with.
But is there a problem in having a pickup litter on the streets because of a safety concern? Used to be you saw inmates a lot
Yeah, I don't
out
know
on the
about that.
roads picking up trash, but you don't ever see that anymore.
That's what I'm asking. We don't get a lot of the DUI, but did y'all get a lot of?
Every now, if a guy's in there for like the second or third one,
Yeah.
for us to get an inmate, usually somebody's gonna be in for 2 years or so.
Yeah.
We'll end up having the same ones for a few months at a time, because if somebody comes, like if a high school kid doing Tennessee honors volunteer work wants to come, we love that, it's great, but you can't just say, hey, go pick up the trash. You gotta tell them what to do. Here's your tool, here's the areas you need to go to. It's not just necessarily just show up and go. The inmates are extremely valuable. They help more than anybody knows, and half the time nobody knows they're there, so that's good too.
Yeah, I think you said 1,000 hours for $9,000.
9,000 hours.
And was that paused due to COVID?
Yes, sir.
Has that been lifted yet?
The county is using theirs again, but we decided we would start July 1 with them. I
Okay.
want to make sure we had the right budget.
All right, anything else on the rack? All right, we'll see you tomorrow night, my friend.
Can't hardly
Anything
wait.
else? Jesse, do you have anything to add or no? All right, I know you can't wait. I can't either.
Can't wait.
I can't, I'm so excited about it. I can't go to sleep tonight.
Well, I'm hoping with this revised packet and some other things that maybe your night's not gonna be as long as that.
I hope so too. And if something comes up, you'll have to let me know, and and then we'll get on to Public Works. But I'm gonna send you a picture of a T-shirt that I got, let's just say out of the country, that it says Hendersonville Parks and Recreation, that I got. I'll tell you privately about where I got it. And I never would have dreamed, and I had forgotten, I was supposed to do this about 2 years ago. Because when COVID came around, everybody stayed here. But I'm gonna send you a picture of it because I think it's from here. And I'm not sure, but it's a gray shirt in blue. It says Hendersonville Parks and Recreation. I'm going like, what year was this? Because I'm interested in seeing it, because when I got it, I bought it for probably 3 pesos or something like that.
Oh,
And it's really, and it was just
I hope
down.
it wasn't my shirt.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it's pretty cool, and I'll send you a picture of it, and I
It
found
had
it.
the smell of beer on it.
No.
Is that made the
It wasn't
change?
mine.
All
Wasn't mine.
right. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, guys.
But I'll send it to you. I'll send you a picture of it, but it was so bizarre and I forgot about it. And I boxed it up and because of the summer, I was taking my t-shirts out now. And I saw it and go, oh my God, I meant to do that. But anyway, I'll send it to you.
Pesos.
Yep, 3.
I need to up that price.
Thank you, buddy. Anyway, okay, let's go on now to the Public Works. And do you have anything?
I was just saying, go through kind of in sequential order of how it appears in your handout.
What page?
Page 10 is the first. Essential services, fairly standard. I will want to point out that the one thing that has changed quite a bit from last year is, for this current fiscal year, is the termite and pest control. We had a duplicate line item in the public works budget.
Excuse me, Marshall. I'm sorry, I don't have that agenda, 'cause I need to come back, but I.
We
Oh, that's
just
good. We're just in
started
Public
Public
Works.
Works.
We're good.
We finished Mark's.
It is, okay. I'll be back in the next 15 minutes, so I'll talk about that.
Okay, not a problem. We'll wait for you.
I just wanted to point out that I took the termite and pest line item out of the public works budget and just moved that entire amount into essential services. And that's why you'll notice the increase was so dramatic.
Okay, was the pest control?
So, the amount didn't increase between the two accounts, but all the money is in this account. And it was deleted from that. That's my bad. That's the difference.
Okay, because I had 100% decrease on the old budget.
Yeah, it would have been in the other, I guess, in the public works budget, it would have been a 100% decrease.
Okay.
That's where it was taken
Right.
out of that one and put into central services.
Okay,
We use this to pay like a water bill, electric bill, gas bill. That's what- Next budget, public works, page 23. When we asset line item stayed kind of close to where we were last year. I did have one purchase for a truck. $6,000.
On the salaries, Marshall, does that include the new engineer you're advertising for?
Those are all existing positions. and
Okay.
So we don't have to, there was no increase.
How are you coming along?
We had interviews last week and 2 really good candidates. So we're excited about that. So
When will you make a decision on that?
probably this week.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, you pointed out, I'm sorry, the resource authority landfill expenses, I think that was taken out to a different category. That was over to disposal. But
That's good.
now there's pretty much the status quo as it was last year, not too much change. I will like to point out, there's, of course, you see a line item for animal product disposal, that is our disposal for year that are hit by cars. It's amazing how extensive that is. But anyway, that's it was last year.
Taking out prison inmate expenses.
We've never, since I've been here, we've never really utilized that. I'm not sure why.
Can't use it at the recycle center or anything like that?
I'll speak to Trace about that, find out why. I think there was some reason why we did that. I don't know why, but I'll find out why we don't utilize that as much as Parks does.
Could you use it for the pickup of yard waste?
I would think, we could use it for that, or, we have a gentleman that picks up trash on the side of the road throughout the city. I think there's a couple different avenues that we could possibly utilize that. So I'm not sure why the road department hasn't used that, but I'll find out.
It's just cheap labor.
But yeah,
free labor, other than McDonald's.
And the supervision.
Yeah.
We hope not.
Yeah, you never know what comes out of it. So was what reading the other day, where a guy, they granted a furlough to a guy to go to his, I think his daughter, his sister's funeral. Yeah, and he skipped town. They found him down in Alabama though.
So Marshall, in Andy's analysis, he put down what he wanted and what the mayor had requested, the first proposal, and what the cuts would likely do. I think, well, anyway, like he said, well, I won't go into what he said, it's here. But are there any major changes that the mayor had that's going to prevent you from accomplishing your mission?
No, sir. The only thing, kind of towards the end, we had a list of capital projects. And I think that what capital projects.
Where are they?
It's in the very.
Is it 35?
It's 30, actually put 37.
37. Okay.
List of capital projects that I proposed in my original budget. It's the Anderson, most got funded, some did not, but the ones that did not fund Anderson turn lane, improvements. Senior street widenings. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these, we have going to find funding for these in some other places.
So what we did with this year's budget, and we're gonna do on a go forward, is any projects that are stormwater related are gonna be charged to stormwater
Right.
fund. So when we look at capital projects, they may be in whole or in part expensed out of the stormwater fund. So when you look at a project that's $1 million and you only see a $600,000 expense in the general fund, it's because you're gonna go and find another $400,000 expense in the stormwater fund.
Gotcha.
So that's a restricted fund. So part of that fund balance policy that we adopted says you use your restricted funds first. If a project is whole or in part stormwater related, it comes out of the stormwater fund. So you'll have to look between both funds now, but it protects the general fund and it gets that unassigned fund balance up, and it's used in the appropriate fund.
So these are taking into account stormwater fees, not COVID, federal COVID.
This is just how the fund balance policy says we should spend the city's money. It has nothing to do.
With federal.
That's correct. That's correct.
So Anderson turn lane, so that money has been collected from Anderson Park. And so are we going to use stormwater to do that? Or are we not going to do that this year? Make improvements for Anderson turn lane. This is as a result of Anderson Park.
Right, we've received the initial payment, see that either this fiscal year, or previous fiscal year, but we have not, the money has not been spent to my knowledge, so there may be other sources in that the new federal funding for Christie.
So, and when I answered the question, I wasn't specific. I don't know which projects offhand we took to the stormwater fund, and it's back here. I just haven't memorized that.
The Durham Farms roundabout, forward lane. I think, of course, industry widening. Some of these could be.
Page 45 of the budget document. It has a section at the bottom that's called capital project from stormwater fund.
Yes.
So those are all the projects that are either in a whole or in part coming out of the stormwater fund in lieu of the general fund.
And I think I know the answer to this, but I have to ask it. So by putting these projects in stormwater, it's going to limit the money that we've got to do regular stormwater projects that Trace does every day. So we've got to make that up, and you intend to use,
Yes, but
I got you.
but any restricted fund we have should be spent first. The general fund should be the last place you spend money, so we'll continue to see projects or portions thereof charged from the stormwater fund. Because we wouldn't want to do a road project and neglect the stormwater portion of it, and we would charge the stormwater portion to this fund.
Do you understand
Yes, I
why
do.
I asked that?
Yeah.
Because
Sure do.
these are all these little projects.
Right.
We're doing the big projects instead of the little projects.
Right.
But
But
Jesse's
the
got a way.
little projects count too.
Oh, they do. But he has a plan for that. So that's good. Okay.
No, I'm right with you. I'm case on point, actually with both of you. We've been very blessed with, with the stormwater projects that the big projects that are funded. And then the smaller ones, we have, that goes with the patience of the people of Hendersonville that have been very patient. But with this, the way that you've done it, or at least the way that I see it, it's going to be really advantageous for the city as a whole, because they'll be able to do, I'm not going to say that it's all knowing, but they'll get fixed quicker. I think that's just my personal
It's
sense.
starting to make a big difference.
It is
too.
starting. It is starting to make.
So Marshall, what about public works under this Drakes Creek Road and New Shackle improvement? $172,000.
That's the portion of that project. If you remember, there's a drainage structure that is your approach to that intersection. And even the project itself, there's some drainage aspects of it. That's the portion of that project that's stormwater related.
New Shackle. So is it the one that's in the county now?
Yeah, I think technically it is in the county, but we're partnering with the county to do that intersection. The turn lane, stoplight.
So this is a down payment of it, I guess.
Yes, I think it's kind of what Jesse was saying, like we're using, we've identified that part of the project.
And let me, I've told the mayor, I need to tell y'all, I've got a meeting Wednesday afternoon with Representative Garrett. And he's very interested. He's gotten a lot of pressure on this intersection, and he's very interested in the state helping us on this project.
And we'd be very open.
So I'm hoping to be able to get some kind of commitment that he'll introduce an amendment to the budget to get us maybe $200,000 from state money to help at that intersection. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Refresh my memory now.
Going down New Shackle,
Right.
going toward Beach.
Yes.
It's that intersection of Old Drakes Creek where near the water pump, near the
Yeah.
pump station.
Yes. Yes.
Where you go down.
Right there on the right.
And all of Drake's Point and more of Durham Farms is coming out that way.
Yes, it does.
To try
Yeah,
to get,
that red light. Yeah.
and there's been 2-3 accidents, and it's a dangerous situation. So
It really is.
So I really appreciate those being included in the projects, I think. Now, the one that we always hear from Pat, or Alderman Campbell, is about Sanders Ferry. What's the plan on Sanders Ferry? I have to ask that question.
There was money originally proposed to widen Sanders Ferry at some key locations where it narrows down. And then maybe what the mayor was going to speak to. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know of anything that's done for Saunders Ferry that we're working on.
Right. Yeah. Right now, there's no funding in my budget to go towards that.
Okay.
Because that's gonna be a hefty tag to do that. I'm gonna tell you this, and you all may disagree with this, but on some of these projects, we can't just do piecemeal. It's gotta be all or nothing, because you just can't do it. I mean, it's a very precarious position, but maybe the mayor's got some ideas about it, but I do know it needs to be looked at, as well as Walton Ferry does too. And that's what I try to talk to people about, that, Walton Ferry is a good example of where they tried to piecemeal it. And it still failed, you know, and then, let me look at it now. It's gonna have to be widened.
Let me jump back.
All the way to the breadbox.
Excuse me, let me jump back to Stormwater Fund, Mary's Magical Place. That's on 45.
Page 45.
500,000, is that gonna guarantee the playground will never flood?
Now, if you, you might not have been an alderman when we went through this process, but you know, we had early discussions about that. And it was merely to help prevent the berm that we're gonna build, was merely to help prevent the flowing water from damaging Mary's Magical Place. It's impossible, it's obviously in floodplain. And so the floodplain water would still enter that area if it gets high enough. But the rushing water is what we're trying to prevent. And then the berm we're gonna build will do that. That's what damaged, the last time that happened, that the rushing waters is what damaged a lot of the equipment in there, but the water itself, it's just flood water, it just would eventually dissipate and go away.
Well, I certainly hope that will help. Let me ask about advertising and postage expense.
Yes. I'd included some money. If we wanted to do like a citywide mailer of any kind, like for example, if we wanted to do one for our trash collection, to have another round of mailers to go out, and just the postage alone would be about $10,000. Just for postage.
Okay,
And so that's, and again, it's not, that's something that we talked about before, but it's certainly not a requirement, but if we wanted to do something like that again, it's expensive to communicate to the city.
Okay.
through that process.
at one time, we were talking about an interactive website, have to maybe offset some of these advertising and postage expenses. Are we working toward that for the city website?
Good question.
So like a reporting system type of.
This may be more user friendly.
Okay. We obviously have a lot of information on our website regarding our trash program. We don't have that, I think that interactive system that you're talking about, where they can go in and physically report. Well, we have, of course, the email, but I think you're looking for just like a portal they can kind of go to and just submit a ticket with their information in it. We don't have that yet, but I think that's something we could.
Yeah, I think that's a goal
Yeah.
that we've been trying to get for, I guess this is our second year really, and talking about it. Where somebody, yes, sir, you can come up here and sit with us, man, do that. Where, and you all certainly know this, where eventually, I'm not gonna say it's not, I don't think it will be this year, but where, let's just say somebody like on 310 Donna Drive can go in there and punch up and see, you know, where their project is. They've got a project going on. Trace
Right.
gets to them and says, okay, we're gonna come over here and clean this up, put a ditch wherever. I'm just using this as an example where they can go on there and see where they are online, you know, where they are in the line of projects. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Now we're going to have that for our stormwater system.
Yeah.
But I think you're maybe kind of broad that out, include
The
like
city
trash. Just
Right.
You know, we're eventually gonna do that. But I think stormwater is the only section where we've got an idea of where we're going with it. Because we've got so many, stormwater was neglected. Not on anybody's, you know, watch or anything like that for so long, because we're by the lake. But we've got this flow of money in, so we're starting to attack those projects sooner than what we thought we would. And so people will be able to do that. Is that right? I'm almost sure that's right, because we've been talking about it, and where they can go on their stormwater projects. But you're right. Eventually, my feeling is you're going to be able to see that citywide on every project that they've got, that we have in public Hope that answers your
If
question.
it does, thank you.
So Marshall, does Public Works have a mowing crew
We did.
that you go out and mow stuff? Could the inmate crew expenses help with that? I mean, Andy says he uses them to weed eat and to mow and all that stuff. I mean, I'm just wondering, Mayor, Andy really speaks highly of the inmate crews.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering, is there an application that we could use those in Public Works to?
Probably so, we used to. The key task that we have to do is we have to get somebody trained to supervise. And that's a little bit of a hurdle. We had somebody years ago and it just sort of, the previous public works director didn't feel like it's worthwhile. But if Andy's able to open that door again, I think it's a good chance we could do public works too.
Is there a liability using inmate labor,
Yep.
operating power equipment?
So there's some restrictions. I'm not sure exactly what they can use, but some are allowed to do some things, some are not allowed to. The bigger liability is they can't know where they're working more than a couple hours ahead of time. The reason is so they can't have somebody come out, meet them there. They're not gonna escape. What they're gonna do is they're gonna get drugs, they're gonna get a weapon, is what they're looking for. And somebody goes and plants it in the shrubs, knowing that this guy's gonna come by there for a while. That's the bigger liability. But it's been done before, and we've had no problems with it before. It just, you
I
can,
was just thinking of injury or workers' comp claim or something to that effect.
I guess I was thinking, I know on the yard waste pickup,
Mhm.
there's two city employees typically. Aren't there, Marshall, a driver and a helper? Could we use an inmate helper to inmate to go out and pick it up, throw it in the truck?
It free up city staff to do something else, yeah.
I don't know, so I don't know what Chipley used them for before.
Since I've been here for 6, 7 years, I don't.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I don't.
See, I don't remember Chip ever
Yeah.
using it.
Dave used them more in parks.
Yeah.
Dave used them a lot more in parks.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, there was a bunch, but I don't know in Public Works we ever used them.
Yeah.
In the last 4 or 5 years.
So we probably don't need to amend the budget to allow that,
Ever.
but if y'all decide that that would be a good use, we can
We-
always
we-
come back and.
Well, we can make money from.
Yeah. Okay.
While we're sitting here, anything else on that? I know the mayor, you still want to speak to us.
I do.
And so if there's any other discussion at this point, Mayor, I'd like, if it's okay, we'll go ahead and just. Beautiful.
So I've spoken to nobody about this because I want to be publicly the first time I talked about it. I have not spoken to Jesse about it, not spoken to staff about it, I've spoken to Alderman about it. I want everybody to know that.
Do you want it to be,
I'm fine with that.
okay,
We have a house that we need to take care of. We have an employee that needs a house. I'm wondering if it's something y'all want to pursue. Jesse and his family are looking for somewhere to live. We have a house that needs somebody in it.
All right.
We can't make this a baby farm. We can't make this decision right now. And we have to go through some process, but we've got to make sure that it's fair.
Yeah.
I have not spoken to him. I have not spoken to anybody. It's one of those ideas you come up with when you're bike riding for long distances. But I'm worried about that house that we haven't had anybody in it for a long time.
See, I thought we had someone in there, really did.
Fire was working out of it, but they
Right.
transferred.
Right,
They moved everything in.
right.
So is it going to require a lot of renovation to make it livable?
To make it temporarily livable, no. To make it long-term, probably so. But this isn't gonna work for his family long-term. But in the short term, it might. And he may think it's the dumbest idea he's ever heard. But we have a house that needs somebody in it, and we have an employee who needs a house. When it was empty before the fire department moved in there before, we were looking at asking any employees, do you need somewhere to live temporarily? And we never had that situation because fire was able to move in there pretty quickly and get it up pretty quickly. And then the question became, what happens when fire moves out?
Yeah.
We don't want it. We've got an asset we want to take care of. Long-term, we may want to bulldoze it.
Does the Friends of what's it called? The Friends of
Indian
Bailey.
Lake Peninsula.
Do they have a potential use as a museum or something for that place?
I've never heard of it.
Okay,
They have expressed no short-term interest in it at all.
okay. I want to live in it. I have a problem with it if we can do it legally and y'all have to work out.
Who's
the
paying utilities on it right now?
'Cause we did all the time. you know, already.
So now they're doing the video, but I think it either comes through or funding.
So it basically is a liability sitting empty.
Pretty much all city assets are liabilities. This is
Yes.
even more so because it's empty.
And the fire department is using it and there's no request for it. Right now, the city owns it, the city might as well use it.
My only concern is we're gonna have to spend $30,000 in there, new carpet, paint the walls. If we're gonna have to spend that kind of money, that
It's a legitimate question.
would make me really, plus if Jesse doesn't think it's suitable. So
Have you seen the house? It's in the best ward in the city.
I beg to differ. son.
And it's got an incredible backyard.
Yes, it does.
more deer than people live there,
And there's,
hundreds of deer.
We're not asking him to take care of the park. We're asking him to live in a house, which is what that house needs.
Well, here's my thought, really. Which is, there's 13 other opinions. But what I would suggest for you, Jesse, seriously, I'm not offended either way. I'd go in there, I would have the opportunity, I would welcome the opportunity for him to go in there and look at it. And if it works for a family, it's I remember that house. I've been in it. I don't know what it looks like now. There's probably been additions or they've corrected it for the fire department. I don't know, but it was a nice house.
looks good on the outside.
Well, it was a nice house to begin with, and and if it works for your family, then that doesn't mean that you might find another house, which is perfectly fine with me. But if you all need one and you want to get out of the atmosphere of an apartment type living, because it's just not for everybody. Apartment living is not for everybody. And you have children and a wife, and you need to, I would say I would take advantage of that, but I would continue to look for a new house, and there will be one that eventually will pop up, but at least you'll have a place where you can, and you're doing us a favor too, because
Right.
I don't know what any other alderman would say, but at least you could take a look at it and see what you think.
Sure. The best example of a house that has not been lived in is that one right next to us. There was somebody living in there. Once they were kicked out,
It's gone. And I'm not offended either way.
either one.
I mean, if you walk in there and the person you, oh, no way. I just don't think this would be good for my family to stay here. That's cool with me, man. We'll just, you keep looking. It doesn't. But like I said, I don't know what it's like now.
The inside's nicer than the outside, so don't just drive up to it, just get inside before you.
Then I'm the same way, Jesse. I'm not gonna be offended if you say this is gonna work for us. At some point, we do need to get somebody living in that house. Or we bulldoze the house.
And I'd hate to tear that place down. There's a beautiful magnolia tree in the back. And it's big, and it's just really pretty. But you may not like magnolia trees. But if you're a true Southerner, you'll love that tree. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, you know what I mean? It's
You're
beautiful.
blooming right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah.
So everything we've talked about with this idea is absolutely public. There's no hiding. We're not trying to do any special favors for anybody. I just want to make sure that we understand we have a house needs to be taken care of. We have an employee that needs a house.
So would that require some kind of action by the board? Or
I would feel more comfortable with that. I don't think it does because it didn't require action by the board to put the fire department in there.
True.
Well, I would say if you-
Here's the problem. It requires an administrative decision.
Right.
And that's the one that would probably make the decision.
So is that something that could be approved in committee?
You can certainly make a recommendation. And I feel like I can make the decision, but I would feel more comfortable if we had discussion at the board level before that decision was
That
made.
makes sense. And we'd
That's
like,
smart.
for Jesse to go look at it first.
And if he wants it, then you could call a special
Yeah.
emergency meeting and get it on the bone, get it on.
Sure will. I'll be
We'll
more than
make
happy.
a
That'd be
recommendation.
my honor.
And again, if you decide this isn't right for you, it is not going to offend any of us.
No,
What are your moving plans?
As soon as possible.
they're here now. If that was here.
Oh, they're here.
Good for you.
Oh, well, we'll give you the address after the meeting. It's just right over there.
Okay.
It's at the it's down here, Your Honor. It's at the four-way stop.
Yeah.
So
Just take a left at the four-way
Uh-huh.
stop.
First house on the left.
Welcome to the South, brother.
Only house on the left.
quick question for, on capital projects, Marshall. For the fire hall, hopefully we'll have some good news on that eventually. The fire hall and the inline hockey, are there contingencies built into those? Of course, we don't even know what the fire hall is gonna cost. We've already spent 10,000 over on the inline for soil compaction studies. Is there any,
That's part of my professional service. That's part of my professional services.
oh, you paid for that?
Really?
item?
Right.
Oh,
So it
okay.
wasn't part of-
Okay.
Okay,
I mean, I guess you're asking if there has been increases that capital projects need to know about.
yeah, and I'll throw this out to this committee because it does the inline hockey at least. But every builder that I've talked to says that the fire halls will cost a lot more than we anticipated because lumber, sheet,
Oh,
sheet rock, everything is just exploded, the cost, and even labor costs. I'm afraid that we're not gonna have enough money in the fire hall and maybe even the inline hockey. And what I don't want to happen on capital project is what happened on fire hall two,
Oh,
where we have to come in here and start robbing things. It's my understanding from Robert that we've got about 190,000, or is it 190 or 109, over 100,000 in the fund for land preservation. In my opinion, we got enough land for parks. With Drake's Creek, with Forest Park, they've given us like 35 acres. So I think and with Beatty Farms, I would like to explore the discussion of moving whatever's in that land preservation money into the reserves that we've talked about for capital projects. That way, if we do run over 50,000, we don't have to come back to the board and have to.
Right, you just
try
take it
to-
out of that.
That would be
fine.
And if we don't spend it, it just bills like your capital projects reserve.
Great idea. This year, though, that set aside for the land preservation is being satisfied by the debt payment. So in future years, that would come up and you could put it into the reserves.
Or past years.
Well, past years is what Robert told me, that there's that much money in the bank that's been reserved. So I'm not even looking at any money for the next fiscal year. That's money that's set aside now. I'd like to just change it from being set aside in the land preservation to the capital project reserve. So can you see anything that I could follow on that?
No, but what did we use for this year? What would we use our money for? Just to resolve, what would you just said it was for?
There's a debt payment that's
Yeah.
satisfying that land preservation. And it's for a purchase. I don't know if it was a piece of, was it the Beatty Farms? I think it was. So the debt on that is being paid with that land preservation money.
For this year, but we didn't zero the account.
No, it's just, I think it's gotta be like around $110,000
Okay.
a year.
Okay.
So the amount that we're paying satisfies that set aside.
So there's still some money there from previous years.
I mean, it might not work, but I'd like to.
Now, let me look at that, that's a good
Bring it
idea.
up for discussion so that if we have these overruns, we've got.
Yeah, it's a good idea, though. My question is, as a chairman, and I know that you, especially in capital project, when I hear that a good idea, I just start counting votes. You know, it's my job to try to figure out whether there's votes there or not, and I don't know. I bet that's a good point, though, because there's 13 opinions. So,
I have a freshman alderman question. How can do we use a budget or is there funding to help pay down debt? Well, are we like 18 million in debt, give or take? How do we start paying that off?
In the very back of the budget, there's a table on our debt service, and in our budget, we have debt service line item. There's an amount that we pay for debt service every year. Even though, and this does make it a little confusing, even though there's only one line, we might be making payments on multiple debts, even though it's only one line, which we are making payments on multiple debts.
Who comes up with that amount that
It's
we're
it's
paying?
all Robert.
It's. have it goes
Well,
up.
yeah, basically,
it's
yeah.
finance.
Yeah.
Is there
Basically, previous boards agreed, that's what the schedule was.
Okay, is there any way we can increase that or use a rainy day fund or if we get a windfall of some sort, we can throw at that?
It's never happened. Well, I shouldn't say it's never happened. It did happen with the TIF payment, because we actually had more money come in than what we owed on the bond for TIF. So we went ahead and paid that off early. So then we saw that windfall. We absolutely could do that. Well, as long as the bonds were set up that we could prepay. Which I think all.
I think they all are, actually, Mayor. Honestly, I mean, I don't know. I'm not into the finance of it. But I think I've been around a long time, and I think that all of them can be paid like that. Like, you know, we're scheduled to make a certain amount, but we can always pay more.
Okay, because I don't care about our triple A rating or whatever. I don't care about that. I just care about getting out of debt.
Yeah, amen to that.
You know, we refinanced, they got less than 1%.
Yes,
Interest payment.
it all helps.
Yeah, but
But-
still, yeah, I figured we're about 4.4% of our annual budget is for debt payment. I may be off a little bit, but it's about 4.4. And every expert that I've said, you don't want to go over 4.5. Nashville is at 12%. And the comptroller is beating them over the head.
Marshall,
Threatening to take over.
is this the entire,
Page 31 has the debt service budget.
okay. Thank you.
I remember, I think the mayor had sent this to, not maybe sent it, but gave us a copy of this once before, I think. I'll have to go back and get all my papers of that. But I think we've got this copy of this. It was in a blue. But that kind of tells you where we are.
Good job, guys. I like agreement.
Yeah, this has been a really good, so far, knock on wood, a good budget year.
Yes.
And I thank you very much.
There's a possibility that I might actually vote for my own budget this year.
And I want to give the mayor kudos.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
He
good
spent,
job.
he spent countless
Thank you.
hours on this, and good job, mayor, good job.
Had it was good that Jesse came along when he did.
Two heads are always better than one.
Absolutely.
All right, is there any other discussion on public works we need to be aware of or look out?
I could point out in the State Street aid, obviously that's the gas tax can get in. It's pretty similar to what it was last year. The one key difference is the maintenance of sidewalks and streets. There was money, a little bit of money moved from streets and the sidewalks to help cover the cost of implementation of restaurants. So you'll see a bigger number there. That's just for the, to come in compliance with our sidewalk program.
The ADA, you talk about the ADA.
The disabilities.
I'd like to make a comment if I may as well.
Sure, yes, sir.
I sent a list out to BOMA for the streets that are gonna be paved, that Marshall and Sarah provided. One of the line items in there is maintenance, various locations.
150.
That's fog seal and crack seal. So some of that's already in there. And then in addition, Public Works is making an effort when they go and they pave a street to also look at ADA compliance while they're already there on the street. So some of those numbers, there's a contingency that's put on those numbers for those streets. And some of that is also to address ADA issues, curb and gutter that's broken, anything grades in the street that need to be lifted up. So it can be, fresh blacktop, but all the ancillary items should be done at the same time as well. And there is fog seal and crack.
And that's what's being done right now at the tennis courts, right?
That's
We
all
pave,
paving.
new paving.
Wasn't the sidewalk or something I was reading in an email?
Oh,
being-
yes, so Trace is doing some new steps there as well too.
Okay,
So it's just gonna be a bigger push when we go out and do streets, that we look at not just the road, but what flanks the road, what ties in, because a lot of times, if you go back a year later to do an ADA sidewalk, guess what? You have to cut the street to do it. And then you're patching back on a street you just paved a year ago.
okay,
So if we can do them in tandem,
right.
you get some economies of scale by, hey, you're there demoing everything, you do it at one time, you pay back one time rather than two times. So that's something that Public Works is, I
So-
think they're gonna do a good job on that this year.
So the 500,000 that the board approved
Yes.
for additional paving. There was a pretty good little chunk of change for maintenance in that.
Yes, and we're doing that. That's been released.
So we are doing some fog seal out of the 500,000.
That's correct. Well, it's not, it's a form of maintenance. It's not fog seal, but it's a kind of maintenance. We're gonna do. Page recently.
And is the budget on those roads that we are paving now, is the 500 we're gonna have any left?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we're spending every.
good.
Marshall, are you seeing increase in costs like we're seeing in construction
Yes.
for paving?
Our asphalt is indexed, which means it kind of tracks as a variable wool increases, it says our asphalt. So as that increases, it increases our paving proportionally. We haven't seen that yet on the invoices, but as they come in.
Y'all doing a great job. I mean, I think we're changing the narrative. Hopefully we are.
Yeah.
Tell us when you have money.
It does. And thanks, Mayor, for
Y'all know
putting
Hey,
in
man,
the fully funded
listen.
paving.
I genuinely appreciate it. This is the first time.
Yeah.
That I've seen this effort on paving, honestly, in 30 years.
Wow.
I mean, since we did it one time, and I guess before Christ was born. I've been on here, but just saying that facetiously, but we remember, you probably remember reporting on this, Jimmy. We did a bond.
Yep.
And that was the biggest mistake ever. But we went on ahead and did it. We paid for it for many, many years. And in fact, some of the streets needed to be resurfaced again. We're still paying on the bond.
Yeah.
But it's been that long, so that's been a long time. So I'm just genuinely pleased with the effort that the mayor's, he and his staff have done, along with the aldermen that have supported us
Yes.
in our work.
Yeah.
And so let's just keep it up and keep moving. Let's pass a budget and there you go. What's the old saying, Bob's your uncle or whatever? Isn't that one of those things? So, all right, if there's no other discussion, Mayor, you don't have anything else for us?
Thank you.
Jesse, how about you? You're good? And the Alderman, we'll just go ahead and I'll need a motion. So moved. All right.
Second.
Adjourn, meeting's adjourned. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Sure. Eric is gonna send an email to